Hello there. Welcome back to my channel. Today is Tuesday, September 2nd. We are coming back after a 3-day weekend. We had off yesterday for Labor Day, and it is crazy to think that this is when I used to start school, back when I taught in Maryland, at least most years, whereas now we are entering our 4th week of school. And I remember initially, I wasn't sure how I felt about the early start, but I think now I really like starting earlier. And of course that means we're done earlier, but it took some getting used to. But now I like the fact that it's September and I already know my kids, feel like we're in a good rhythm, a good routine. So today we're gonna chat about the long weekend. I'm gonna share some things I did to kind of unwind, unplug, refresh for the week, but also some work that I did, because y'all know me, and it does bring me joy and it makes me feel a lot less stressed coming into the week. So I have some new things that I put together I'm gonna share with you, and then we're gonna chat about the day, what's going on, things I did before I left to make it easier, all of that. So let's jump into it. Let's start with a little weekend recap. First of all, if you couldn't tell, I did get my hair cut, which I'm that awful person that gets their hair cut once a year. The last time I had it cut was July of 2024, so it's been over a year this time.
From henceforth, you shall be known as Big Haircut.
And it was very necessary, so I feel fresh coming into the week, literally. But I also had my little date night with Billy. If you saw my last vlog, I was putting together a little boo basket, if you will, and the theme was falling in love. So I just grabbed some treats that I knew that he would like. We watched You've Got Mail. He really enjoyed it. I think next we're gonna have to watch Sleepless in Seattle because he's never seen that. I was unsuccessful in getting the the Count Chocula cereal, but I'll put in a little clip of what the finished basket looked like. And I did tell him my intent with the Count Chocula, and I explained I went to a bunch of different stores, couldn't find it, but it was a hit. Then Saturday night is our one night that we will eat out. And so we went to a place called Freebirds, which it's a local, definitely Texas chain. I think it's even based here in Austin, but they make burritos, burrito bowls, salad bowls, things like that, kind of like Chipotle. But it cracked me up because we went through the line, and when we were standing there and I was waiting to pay, I noticed behind the counter they had the big G set up, which is what I teach to my students on how to remember gallons, quarts, pints, and cups. And it was just cool to see it in a real world, application. I took a picture, and it's something I'll probably show my kids as well when we get there. Then I slept in. I did a lot of cooking. I love cooking, and typically I cook on the weekends and then Mondays and Friday nights just because it's easier for me, and Billy cooks during the week. Y'all, I made this pesto zucchini turkey skillet. I'll put the recipe, but it turned out so good. It was delicious. I made the pesto from scratch, and chef's kiss, if I do say so myself. I watched Gilmore Girls, I went for walks, I got my 3 hardest training sessions of the weekend because I am now in my final block of my meet prep. I compete on October 10th at the Olympia in Las Vegas. And so I feel good that today I get to take a rest day, and I just feel like it's taken off a lot of my stress coming into the week. Pivoting, both literally and figuratively, speaking of doing things to take off the stress leading into the week, I did do a little bit of work. Now, not a ton. As you heard, I did plenty to unwind, relax, all of that, but I do like using long weekends to try to get ahead, and that's what I did. So I stayed up to date on my emails, and one thing I had put in my Friday newsletter for families, with it being a long weekend, I said, hey, if you go anywhere, if you do anything fun and want to share photos with me, please send them my way. I'd love to be able to see them myself, and then it makes it easier to have a conversation with students like, hey, I saw you did this over the weekend, tell me about it. And then if they give permission, I also like to share them with the class because I just think it helps to build that class community when we can see little bits of our lives outside of just the classroom. So I did have a couple of families who shared photos, and I responded to them, and I also pulled the photos and put them into my daily slides, which I have recently shown in a vlog. So I'll link that for you if you missed it. I also got our extra credit opportunities for all of the subject areas loaded onto our 4th grade Google site. So every marking period, we have an extra credit assignment for math, reading, science, and social studies that students can complete. It's due a week before the marking period ends, and if it's completed in full and they get full points, they basically earn 20 extra credit points towards their lowest daily grade in that subject area. And I had a parent reach out about, hey, when is it gonna be posted? So I was like, oh, I need to get that together. So got that done, which feels good. And then planning wise, going into the weekend, was already about 2 weeks ahead planning wise for social studies. So I focused on math over the weekend, and I already had math planned for this whole week ahead, but I now have it planned for next week as well, which feels good, especially because it's kind of like a win-lose situation with having a long weekend. It's great because that means this week is shorter. It's only 4 days instead of 5, but that also means I miss out on like my planning time I would usually have on Monday. And so in order to stay on track, I have to like try to squeeze in more planning, and I can either do that during the week or I opted to kind of do it over the weekend. But I feel good that math is all planned out for next week. I also planned intervention. So our intervention time is during what we call our flex time in math. So we have a half an hour every day. So we are using a different kind of format for our intervention services for students. And with that, we give pre-assessments. Ideally, I would have given it on Friday, but that didn't happen. So I'm giving it this morning. It's fine. It's all gonna be fine. But we give them a pre-assessment, and then based on how students do on that pre-assessment, we form our intervention groups. And there's kind of like levels. So the goal of intervention is to help bridge those gaps of instruction that students have missed. And so even though ideally I want my students learning 4th grade curriculum, if they have a gap on a 3rd grade standard or a 2nd grade standard, we need to help them master that standard before they're adequately prepared for the 3rd grade standard and then the 4th grade standard, if that makes sense.
Standard.
Right, standard.
So the first pre-assessment we give is like at the 2nd grade level. That way we can target any students that need intervention with those standards. Then we move to the 3rd grade, then we move to the 4th grade. So that being said, I created a new kind of analysis/planning sheet. I basically put it all in one page that I can use throughout the week. So let me show you that. So I just based this on a planning sheet that we were provided by our district, but it was 2 pages and I really wanted it on one. I made it in Google Slides. It's just, tables and rectangles and it's nothing fancy, but the top would be the data analysis. So I would put the topic, the TEK that ultimately we are targeting. So whatever the 4th grade TEK is, and then the grade level of the pre-assessment. So the first one would be like 2nd grade. Then I'm only going to really be analyzing data on the students that don't get all of the questions correct. And for each pre-assessment, we are given kind of this little score sheet, and we can identify like at a more detailed level, I guess I would say, like their errors, what kind of error it was, etc. But I will mark like which questions they got wrong, and then that will help me create my groups. And then down here is where I would put the plans. And I left it open-ended, so day rather than like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because for example, this week we only have 4 days, so I kind of have to condense it, although it's fine because we're starting with the 2nd grade, and I know I won't have as many students as I will for like 3rd and then the 4th. But I just have a box where I can put, a little listed out what the plans are. Let me show you my example, actually, that'll be easier, hold on. Okay, so obviously I've not given the pre-assessment yet, so I haven't filled in the top part, but once I give it this morning, it's focused on place value. The ultimate TEK is 4.2B, but we're giving the 2nd grade level. So then this is just kind of very, very rough plans. Now, these are based on resources that were provided for us, so the titles may not make sense to you, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I just kind of listed out like we're gonna focus on bundling, so modeling numbers with base 10 blocks and then regrouping, and then I'm gonna give them some number riddles. And so I also made it so that I had this like 1-pager just to print out with like example word problems and things so that I can put it in front of them. I list out the materials that I need, and I did that for each of the days. The notes is where I can take notes on things that happened in that group that week. So like based on student performance, changes I need to make, etc. And then something else I did over the weekend, can you tell I'm excited about this one? I added 2 new cheers that I'm gonna hang up above my whiteboard because my students have learned all but one of the cheers. We were supposed to learn a new one on Friday, but because we were taking our curriculum-based assessments on Friday for math and science, we just didn't really have the opportunity to learn a new cheer. So I'll teach them the last one that's up there today. But then I've actually had students kind of submit cheers, which I love. I love that they take ownership over it. They have a role in it, and it's almost like something they kind of leave behind, if you will, because I have cheers that were made by past students that now I'm teaching to my current class, and it's just, I don't know, it's a cool feeling. So based on cheers that students submitted, I had one that submitted crack the egg, and I thought this was a really cute idea, similar to my Pat the Burger. So if you don't know Pat the Burger, I would say, Pat the Burger, and we go like this. And I would say, is it done yet? And they go, no. We put it back on the grill, and I go, is it done yet? And they go, no. And I go, it's well done. Yes, it's cheesy. They all are. It's fine.
The same grill you grilled your foot on?
But this student was like, oh, we can do like crack the egg and in the pan and then say it's well done. And I was like, okay, let's like mold this a little bit so that it works with eggs. Things I never thought I would say. It's not my best work, okay? This is what my tired teacher brain came up with. So the idea is we're gonna crack the egg, and then we would say, who are we cooking for? And we go, the expert. And then we flip the egg in the pan, and I go, why are we cooking? And then we go, they did excellent. That's the whole cheer. I don't know, I think it'll come together, but I made the poster for that. Crack the egg, I just made these right in Canva. I've had a lot of requests for a whole video on our classroom cheers. So at some point, we're gonna have a whole video on that, and I'll share the posters and everything with you at that time. The other one, this student had shared something along the lines of saying like bing, bing, boom, boom, and then that was amazing, and like rhyming amazing with bing. So I swapped the order. So instead of bing, bing, boom, boom, it's boom, boom, bing, bing. And then that was amazing. But I wanted some kind of a hand motion to go with it, and my brain went to kind of like fireworks. So the idea is, as you say the word, you would make like fireworks with your hands. So it would go boom, boom, bing, bing. That was amazing, is what I came up with. I called this wiggle fingers in an arc, is how I described it. Because for the cheers, if you can't tell, I put like a picture that represents it, and then I just kind of list out, you know, what it should sound like. And then also I just realized, so I printed these double-sided, hear me out. When I first printed it, it printed like this, and there was a bigger border. And when I saw it, I was like, I don't think that's what the other posters look like. I think it's a thinner border. So I didn't want to waste paper, so then I just flipped it and I reprinted it, but with less of a border. And that way I had both options. And I was right, it's the thinner border, but we're good, because now I've got both. So I'm gonna get these hung up, and I'm gonna show you something else I'm excited about. Okay, full transparency. I have been vlogging all morning and just realized that my microphone attachment piece that's on my camera was not on, which means none of the audio was captured. So rather than trying to re-record everything, it's just not gonna have sound, and we're gonna do a little voiceover. So it's gonna not match up with what I'm saying. Just go with me, okay? But I'm gonna voice over the things that I'm talking about, and then we will resume with my check-in clip at the end of the day where I actually have audio. Guess I'm a little rusty after a long weekend. I'm sorry, but hopefully y'all understand. We all make mistakes, right? That's what Hannah Montana said. So here's what the posters look like now that they're up on my bulletin board. As you can see, I still have space left to add more, which is exciting. And then coming down to our Math Flex games, I do need to still teach my students Shut the Box. Currently, they just know Multiplication War. I'm kind of introducing the games a little at a time. That way I can make sure that they get efficient with playing them before I teach them another one. But I am really, really excited because I recently got on Amazon these decks of playing cards that are all different colors. Now, I got these from, I think the brand is Bicycle, but they have a game called Nertz. It's Nertz, and it basically comes with 8 decks of cards, but each deck of cards is a different color. So they're just your standard playing cards, but because they are different colors, it makes it so much easier for us to be able to put the cards away. So if we find like a stray card on the floor, we know exactly what bin it belongs to based on the color. Whereas before, because the decks of cards I had were basically all the same color, it made it kind of tricky to differentiate them. These plastic cases come from Walmart. They're basically $1 each. You can also use snack containers from Dollar Tree. They're a little cheaper, but they've been hard for me to find at my Dollar Tree lately. So I switched over to these plastic cases from Walmart. You can also get them on Amazon. They're a little more expensive. I will link the Amazon ones as well as the Walmart ones, but you can also keep an eye out at your local Walmart. I really like that they have clips on the side. They perfectly fit a deck of cards. They also will perfectly fit a pack of 24 crayons. I think they're technically called like crayon boxes. So they're very versatile. You can use them for a lot of things. They're cheap, but still durable, and it just stores all of the cards really nicely. Next, I'm sharing some other things that I'm excited about, some new additions to our classroom. First, I have 3 new Dogman books to add to our classroom library. Yay! We've got the original Dogman. We've got Dogman, what is this one? Dogman Big Jim Begins, which I think is a newer one. And then we have Dogman Mothering Heights. Now, these books are being added to my classroom library because I have a student who is obsessed with Dogman. And I really like to fuel my classroom library based on my students' interests. It helps me kind of build it up a little at a time. And I had a couple of Dogman books. I also have a fair amount of Captain Underpants books, also by Dave Pilkey. But the fact that I have a student who really loves Dogman, I was like, you know what? We're going to extend my Dogman collection. So I had added some of these to my Amazon wish list, and big shout out to Emily. You are the best. She fulfilled these from our wish list. They came in over the weekend, and I'm so excited to get them added into our classroom library. I will show you the process for that in just a minute, but there's something else I'm even more excited about. If you followed me over the summer, you may remember I went to ISTE. It was a conference in San Antonio, and one of my favorite things to do is just walk around the area where all the different brands, it's like the expo area, and I just look around for what intrigues me, and I came across Make-A-Do. Now, Make-A-Do is basically a cardboard construction kit. So it comes with different tools that you can use to be able to build things out of cardboard. And when I saw this, it blew my mind, like the coolest thing, because the student tools are all student friendly, meaning they can be used for like cutting the cardboard, like the saw. And I was like, there's no way that's safe to touch, but it is. I don't know how, but it's not sharp at all. You just saw back and forth and it cuts the cardboard. There's also a perforating tool that you run on the cardboard, and it then allows you to fold it. And there is this screw attachment tool, and you can use the plastic screws to attach pieces of cardboard together. And of course, you can always then take those out and reuse them. So when I saw this over the summer, I knew I really wanted it for my classroom. I put it on my Amazon wish list, but honestly didn't really think it would get fulfilled. But a huge shout out to Linda. You are the best for fulfilling this for our class. I am so very grateful and cannot wait to be able to use it with them. In fact, over the long weekend, I spent a lot of time just brainstorming ways I could use this in math and science, coming up with ideas. And if you remember, last year in the fall, we have what's called Parent Peek. This is basically where we invite parents in and they will observe a lesson. Now, last year we had them observe a science lesson. We did a fruit theme. I dressed up like a banana. It was great. Go back and watch that vlog if you missed it. But I was thinking, what if this year we did more of like a STEM challenge? That way the families could like help out and be more involved in it. And because we're going to do our Parent Peek just before fall break, around Thanksgiving time, I was thinking maybe we could do like creating parade floats or like a trap the turkey type of STEM challenge. And we will have just wrapped up learning about circuits. So one of the kind of parameters is that students have to make it light up. Like there's so many possibilities, but we're going to use this kit and I'm so excited. So stay tuned because as we get closer to that, I will be sure to share more. Okay, so here is my process for adding new books into my classroom library. First, I stamp all of them with this stamp. I got it on Amazon. It just says, from the library of Mrs. Emerson. You're able to customize it. They ship it right to you. I will link it for you. Then I attach the book label, which is just a simple circle with a symbol. Now, if you're not familiar, Dave Pilkey wrote the Captain Underpants. That's why I used underwear for this. But I just print these on regular printer paper and then use a 1-inch hole punch to punch it out, and I attach it to the book using clear packaging tape. You can also print these on like labels or stickers, but I feel like they kind of fall off over time. They lose their stick, if you will. So I prefer to use just clear packaging tape to attach it to the corner of the book. Now, originally I had to get like the hole punch and the tape out of my cabinet, but I think I'm just gonna leave all of these items right in the plastic Sterlite container where I store it in my closet. That way it's all in one place, and whenever I'm ready to add new books, I've got it. Then I get the books added into the library. Now, these library labels are available in my TPT store. I will link them for you. They include both the bin label, which is editable. You can make the category whatever you want, and the book label. So the circular label on the book matches the circular label that's on the bin. That way it's super easy for students to know what goes where. They just match the symbols. And as I mentioned, they're editable, so you can create your own category. The product includes, I think there's over 500 different images, and then you can customize it. So for example, I have Dave Pilkey, and then Star Wars, and then Minecraft. It could be by genre, author, series, whatever you want. Next, I wanted to share a little bit about what we are doing today, because we just took assessments in both math and science on Friday. So we have kind of a fresh start this week. Our assessment in math was actually like the midway point through the chapter. So as I mentioned, we're taking that pre-assessment today, and then we are starting the standard algorithm for addition. That's going to continue tomorrow, and then we will move into subtraction. So one of the things I did on Friday before leaving is refreshed my word wall. I erased everything that was up there because unfortunately I just don't have enough space to fit all of it. But here's what it looked like before I erased it. This one is kind of a big unit, and in order to set up a new word wall, I basically went into my rainbow drawers where I keep all of these vocabulary cards I made over the summer, and I just start to kind of group them on the board in a way that makes sense for how I'm planning on teaching it, as well as what kinds of words connect together and go together. You'll notice I kind of created different sections. I have like the main section for addition, the main section for subtraction, and then over on the left, I have some other vocabulary words and phrases that I want to give my students definitions for, but they're just not as important as like the examples for addition and subtraction. So for example, we have the associative property, we have algorithm, that's a new term for my students. We're also going to be talking about number sentences and then the difference between equations and expressions. So again, I'll have examples up here and definitions that my students can kind of refer back to when needed. Then it moves into the addition section, and I'll have some examples as well as definitions for addition and then also the subtraction. In the middle, we have terms that will apply to both. So for example, regrouping. I'm going to show an example of what this looks like for addition as well as what it looks like for subtraction. Same thing for strip diagrams, finding the unknown, as well as number lines. These are going to apply to both addition and subtraction, so I put them in the middle. Then the subtraction on the right side is a little more intense. I have more space dedicated to it where I can have examples for like subtracting across multiple place values and subtracting across zeros. Then just something I wanted to share is this black microfiber cloth. This is actually what I use to clean my whiteboard. I spray it down with a cleaner spray that I got from TJ Maxx. It's like a countertop spray. It's not even made for whiteboards, but I spray that on and then I use this microfiber cloth and it just comes off perfectly. I got these in a big pack on Amazon. They're actually what I use at my house to clean like my kitchen and whatnot. And then I just throw them in the wash and reuse them. I've been using these for several years and they're just so versatile. I already had one here at school that I was using to clean off like my science word wall, but I decided to bring in another one. That way I could have one for science and then one for math, since my math board is a little on the newer side. rather than trying to carry it back and forth, I figured it would be more helpful to have one in each spot. So speaking of science, here is where I keep that other one. I just have these little magnetic bookshelf type things from Lakeshore Learning. And then I had to point out that on this cloth, you could see the neon expo markers that I had erased from last week. They definitely left a little bit of a bigger stain on the cloth, but it still came off the board and it'll come off in the wash, so it's fine. First, I'm gonna insert some B-roll of what this science board looked like before I erased it. This is the new current science setup. We are starting a new chapter, Properties of Matter, and this is kind of a longer chapter. In fact, it's like 4 weeks long, and you'll notice I have sectioned off the board based on what we're focusing on that week. So the first week, we're gonna focus on temperature and physical state. Then we will go into mass, density, and magnetism. Now, for these headings, I have the words that go with that heading just kind of listed underneath. That way, as we're going through and taking our notes and building out the word wall, I know that those are the words that I need to make sure get included. Also, I'm pointing out that magnetic border. I know I've shared this before, but I get it on Amazon. I have it linked for you down in the description box. It's on my classroom list, so you can find it there. It's just a quick, easy way for me to kind of section off the board. And my favorite magnets for the actual vocabulary cards come from Walmart. I think they call them like button magnets, but they work fantastic. And then up at the top, matter and physical property, they're gonna kind of span the entire chapter. So I'm gonna add that information at the top rather than putting it in a specific section. So this is just an overview of what the board looks like going into the week. And then it was at the end of this clip that I realized the sound was no longer recording, but here is where I'm just talking about things I want to get done before my students come in this morning. The first thing I had to do was stuff Tuesday folders because typically I would stuff them on Monday afternoon. However, I was kind of thrown off this week and obviously we didn't have school on Monday and it is now Tuesday morning and I need to stuff their folders. Ideally, I would have done this on Friday, but I just kind of forgot. So it's fine. I'm just going to sit, get that stuff before my students come in. And then I talked about other stuff, but it couldn't have been that important because I don't remember what I said. And then I basically said, I'll check in with you at the end of the day. Okay, we're back with sound this time. Although in my defense, I realized it was not my fault. Apparently my microphone was out of battery. And so I had turned it on, but then it turned off because I ran out of battery. But as you can probably see, my back table is a hot mess, but that's because we're still getting in the flow of doing some small group intervention in math. I have like exit tickets that I was trying to check as students were bringing them back to me, but then I'm also running my group, so I didn't get to all of them, but I need to kind of take that data, put it onto my spreadsheet. Actually, no, my clipboard's right here. Put it onto my spreadsheet. I need to finish writing in the analysis of the pre-assessment data, but I have my little pieces that I was using during intervention of some of the number riddles and different ways to represent numbers. And I have base 10 blocks all over. We were mostly using place value discs during class, not necessarily today, but when we were working on place value. However, I wanted to be able to show them with the base 10 blocks, I'm not gonna be able to do this while holding it up, that 10 tens, maybe I can do it like this. Can you all even, yeah, you can see that. Okay, hold on, give me a second. Okay, so showing them that 10 tens are the same as 100. And so we were trading and I called it the Bank of Emerson and they'd give me their 10 tens and I'd give them 100. And so making that connection, but we were like using a lot of manipulatives today. And the goal is to move them from that concrete, which is like the physical manipulatives, to the abstract, where then they are ultimately representing it using numbers. So you go through concrete, representational, and then abstract. Representational would be like drawing pictures. So for example, putting like dots and drawing, things within the place value chart to then just the digits. So I had the place value charts back here and just a little thing to make it that much more engaging for them. Like I let them pick their color of their pocket when they come back. It also incentivizes them to get back here as quickly as possible, but it's a hot mess. However, learning is messy sometimes, and that's okay. So I need to get better organization for the base 10 blocks. As I mentioned, we don't use them super often. I used to use these like plastic containers from the dollar store, so I might need to get a couple of those just to have them on hand. But that being said, overall, it was a good day. It just was a little hectic coming back from a long weekend, trying to get back into the flow of things. So I have optimism that the rest of the week will go more smoothly. And that's gonna be about it. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss any future videos, and leave a comment. Let me know, what do you all wanna see? Like, what do you wanna see more of? What are things that I haven't shown that you wanna be able to see? That way I can make sure that what I'm sharing is actually relevant to you. But as always, thank you for watching. I love you so much. Don't forget to put your positive pants on, and I will catch you in the next one.